Not every tech flop is a dead end. Sometimes a product tanks because it's broken, other times it fails because it's just too early. Right idea, wrong decade. Today, we're counting down a list of innovations that bombed when they first showed up, but eventually the world caught on. These were ideas ahead of their time, ignored, mocked, or quietly buried, only to come back years later as everyday essentials. This is a look at the tech that failed before it changed everything. Number 5, the backup camera. 1956, the safety feature nobody wanted yet. In 1956, Buick rolled out the Centurion concept car. It was flashy, futuristic, and came with one weird twist. It didn't have a rearview mirror. Instead, it had a rear-mounted camera and a small TV screen on the dash. It was basically analog backup cam technology in the Eisenhower era. It worked, but it wasn't exactly practical. The camera was bulky, the screen was dim, and the wiring made no sense for a mass production. Also, the average car buyer in the 50s was more interested in white-wall tires and tail fins than avoiding low-speed collisions in reverse. GM pitched it as a glimpse into the future, but there was no market, no safety regulations, and no reason for anyone to even care. It wasn't just ahead of its time, it was orbiting a completely different planet, so the idea got shelved. No one built another car with a backup camera for almost 50 years. By the early 2000s, digital cameras were cheap, LCDs were everywhere, and safety tech actually helped sell cars. In 2018, rearview cameras became legally required on new vehicles in the US. The original idea was right, just half a century too soon. Number 4, the Picturephone. 1964, the video call nobody wanted to take. In 1964, AT&T showed off the Picturephone at the New York World's Fair. It let you make a call and see the other person's face in real time. Black and white video, clunky hardware, and a price tag that made long-distance charges look like pocket change. It was cutting edge and completely a bust. AT&T thought it was the future of communication. They installed public booths in major cities, ran live demos, and bet big on the idea that people wanted to be seen as well as heard. But in reality, most people didn't want their friends or coworkers staring at them mid-conversation, especially in an era where phones were private, casual, and usually done in your pajamas. Even worse, the infrastructure was ridiculous. You needed dedicated lines, bulky desk units, and a second person who also had a picture phone. Spoiler alert, almost nobody did. The picture phone wasn't just too expensive, it was too weird, too intrusive, and too far ahead of a culture that wasn't ready for FaceTime. Fast forward 40 years, with broadband internet, smartphones, and apps like FaceTime and Zoom finally made video calling feel normal. But in 1964, AT&T tried to drag the world into a future, and the world hit the decline button. Number 3, the EV1. 1996. The electric car GM didn't want to succeed. In the mid-1990s, General Motors built a car that was decades ahead of its time. It was called the EV1. Fully electric, ultra aerodynamic, and capable of 70 to 100 miles per charge. Drivers loved it. Environmentalists praised it. But GM, they crushed it, literally. The EV1 wasn't available for purchase. It was lease only, and GM kept tight control over every unit. Once the leases ended, the cars weren't renewed. They were recalled and destroyed. Even celebrities who begged to buy theirs outright got turned down. So what happened? On paper, the EV1 was a success. But behind the scenes, GM was under pressure from dealerships, oil companies, and even its own board to not shake things up too much. The infrastructure wasn't there. The profit margins were terrible, and the company had no real interest in turning a pilot program into a revolution. And so, the first mass-produced electric car in America got buried before Tesla was even a company. By the 2010s, Tesla proved there was a real demand for EVs. Now every major automaker is playing catch-up, but the EV1, it was the electric car that arrived too early and got wiped out before it had a chance. Number 2, Jetpacks. In 1961, the U.S. Army tested the Bell rocket belt, a real-life jetpack that could lift a human into the air using pressurized hydrogen peroxide. It looked like something out of a sci-fi comic, and it worked. Kind of. The dream was simple. Individual flight, soldiers flying over rivers, rescuing people from danger, maybe even replacing helicopters. But reality came in fast and crashed harder. The rocket belt had a max flight time of 20 seconds. It was loud, unstable, and had a range of about 120 meters, assuming you didn't slam into a wall first. Pilots had to be insanely fit just to steer the thing, and landing, a controlled free fall, was your best case scenario. Even Hollywood didn't buy in. James Bond used a jetpack and Thunderball as a cool stunt, but that's all it ever was, a stunt. Every attempt to turn it into a real product ended the same way. Too dangerous, too expensive, and too impractical to ever go mainstream. Modern companies like Jetpack Aviation and Gravity Industries have made more stable, longer-flying versions. They're still niche, but they actually work. Just don't expect Amazon to start using them for deliveries anytime soon. Number 1, the LaserDisc. 1978, the format that looked better, but lost anyway. Before DVDs, before Blu-ray, there was LaserDisc. Introduced in 1978, it offered higher resolution video, better color accuracy, and chapter selection decades before that was standard. It looked better than VHS in every way, except for the one that mattered: convenience. LaserDiscs were huge, literally the size of vinyl records, and just as fragile. You needed a special player they couldn't record, and flipping the disc halfway through the movie, yeah, that was normal. They were also expensive. A player could cost over $1,000 in the 80s. And movies weren't cheap either. And while VHS let you record TV shows or home movies, LaserDisc was strictly playback only. That killed any shot at mass market appeal. Collectors and film nerds loved it, but regular people stuck with tapes. When it finally worked, DVDs took LaserDisc's best ideas, digital video, chapter menus, bonus features, and shrunk them down into a cheaper, more practical format. LaserDisc walked so DVD could run, but for most people, it was the better format they never actually used.